Unit guys just go down there and just start schwacking people, right? Cut the head off the snake, right? But it's so complex down there. So it's political corruption. It's the cartels, and then they're fighting themselves for turf wars and stuff like that. But they did just pass a bill in this administration to use DoD assets in America. So they're not just in Mexico. They're not just in Central and South America anymore. They're here. So that's the problem that you can't create if you just focus on south of the border. Focus on south of the border, and then guess what? They tell their guys here, hey, start stirring up the nest in the States. Now we have issues everywhere they're at in the United States.
What are some of the key things that you're looking for when you're like walking around?
Key thing, out of the norm. Anything out of the norm. But so in order to know what is out of norm and is not normal, you have to get out there and find out what's normal, right? I mean, because otherwise everything is new, right? So a lot of folks, even in their own neighborhoods, people, everybody's got their blinders on. They go from one point to another, straight line. That's what I need to do. I'm going to go do it, get back. That's the other thing. I tell them, take time, wind it down a little bit. Don't be in a rush, because once you get in a rush, that's when things happen. They just start piling on each other. And then before you know it, you're face to face with, a threat. You never saw it coming, which is what they say. If you listen to victims of crime, any crime, home invasions, something on the street, in their interviews, post-incident, they'll always say, well, I never saw it coming, or didn't expect it to happen to me. Even though they hear about it happening, right? So it's like, okay, pay attention to that. And then instead of saying, first of all, it's a mindset thing. Instead of saying to yourself, well, that'll never happen to me, because that specific exact situation I would never be in that situation. Just say, well, what if it did? Just give yourself that little out, right? What if it did? Mm-hmm. In my situation where I'm at, what would happen, right? And I give them all kinds of information too, though, about how to, who to look at, where to go for research and crime stats in their areas and stuff like that. And that's usually a pretty helpful thing to say for the people who think, well, it'll probably never happen to me because I'm not in that situation. That happened to them in their situation in their town. But I give them the information in their specific town, homes, and everything else to go find out where the crime stats are. And usually that's the first eye-opening moment. And they're like, wow, okay, well, I guess it could happen to me. I guess it's possible. So yes, this is what we're going to look for. And then people who seem out of place, cars, people, your environment, and then I really go, first thing I do, basic instincts. I remind them that they were born with inherent, basic instincts, human instincts. Mm. And over time from social interaction, from their families, their friends, their workplaces, and all that stuff, they're kind of trained to think, give people excuses. Don't be judgmental and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Don't think bad of people. It's like, well, okay, there are bad people out there, one. So, it's absolutely fine to be, you don't got to be a dick about it, but you just assess the situation and
be realistic.
Yeah. And okay, that person makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, well, do something about it then, right? Act on it instead of giving, because of whatever it is. Sometimes it's not depending on people's experience, right? Different thresholds of acceptable like levels of risk and all that stuff. So in my environment, in my life, so I have to accept a lot of risk for a lot of things I did. So I understand, how to read my feelings, first of all, how I think about something, right? And this is kind of sketchy, kind of thing. And what am I allowed? And plus my capabilities. I'm comfortable, confident with being able to defend myself and all that stuff. And now I have other people with me. I feel responsible for other people. So, it's kind of one of those things. Be prepared, right? And avoid conflict if you can. So, but you got to see it coming first.
Yeah.
So head up, look out. Keep out of your phone is a huge thing because people are walking around all day like with the phone right in their face or both earplugs in, right?
We were just talking about that offline.
Yeah.
It's like I know I do it.
It's like, hey. So I get it. They sell you two as a pair, one for your left and one for your right, but they both work independently of each other. or even in cars. So hands-free stuff. Instead of using the speaker on your car, you could do that great. But also just keep one in your ear so you can still hear. That's one of your senses that I reminded everybody. It's very helpful for situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Sight, smells, hearing, basic human stuff, human instinct stuff that we've kind of shut down. But you wear earbuds to do that. So I'm going to listen to my favorite, playlist and all that stuff while I'm jogging or whatever, working out. But then you realize you're shutting off 50% of your senses of hearing things, which helps you be aware of potential threatening situations. And it could be natural disasters too. I cover all that. So not just a person on the street, that kind of a crime thing, but that does exist. Be aware of it. But also people who live in, Tornado Alley or in West Coast they have earthquakes, hurricanes, thunderstorms, all that stuff. If you're in those areas and you shut down your senses, which you were naturally given to use for that purpose, like preservation of your life.
Yeah, you're setting yourself.
You're setting yourself up for failure, right?
Yeah.
Sirens, if you're driving, sirens you don't hear, for emergency responders and all that stuff. It's like, you can still hear them just fine with one earbud in,
So let me ask, if I took you and I tossed you down in Tijuana right now, obviously cartels, we're going to talk about this a little bit at some point, but if I toss you in a place like Tijuana, I mean, how much different is how you're going to move in that area, or what you're looking to observe versus, let's say, what we were talking about a couple streets away from here, or, Chicago, LA, like, a place in the US?
So almost exactly the same.
That's what I was interested. Yeah.
So bigger cities, any big city in America, I would treat it the same as if I was in Tijuana, Mexico, or anything else. So for several reasons. One, crime is crime, and criminals don't care about anybody but themselves, right? And care about you. And so unfortunately in today's environment too, it's worse for us on the regular side of things, the non-criminal side of things, because the criminals don't feel like they have the consequences for their actions.
Especially in California.
Yeah. So that's where that kind of starts multiplying worse for us, because they don't care. Even if they do get arrested, you hear it all the time. They get arrested, then they get released. So the whole catch and release program is going rampant throughout America right now. It's like, so they don't care anymore. And then they get to the point, so the level of desperation they are to get what they want, which is usually drugs, big meth epidemic, and is causing people to they're getting bold. I'll put it to you that way. Bad people are getting bold to get your stuff so they can get what they want, and they don't care about consequences, because there usually is none. Like, okay, I'm going to go to jail for a minute. All right, roger that. I'll be out by tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll do it again. And so those things are all, horrible. I mean, consequences of what, the legal system that's going on right now, and all the other influences that are creating that. Meth is a huge problem everywhere right now. And then interject just the regular stuff. People wanting to get, medical marijuana, or making that legal. It's like, okay, think about the consequences of what's happening though. And right now, even where it's legal, that's where some of the bigger crimes are, because those places are getting robbed, or people going to and from to get their medical marijuana are getting robbed, right? Because somebody knows they just got some stuff and I want it. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it's one of those things. It's like, just be aware that it's happening, and avoid it if you can. But if you have no options, then be prepared to, do something. I tell all my students, it's like, you're going to do one of two things, right? So the whole OODA loop thing, right? You're going to observe something, orient yourself to it, decide what to do about it, and then act on it. So, and when you act on something, you get two options. Give yourself only two options. So I have to do all this kind of stuff, right? You either get in or get out. Either get away, avoid, or get in it and mix it up, right?
Yep.
Be prepared to get involved with something like that, or get out. So alleviate that kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to get out, but if something happens, I'm going to make a decision, decide what to do about it and act on it, and give yourself those two options. I'm going to get in or get out, period. And if you get out, then go. No harm, no foul, right? You're not going to be judged any other way. It's like, all right, roger that.
Yeah.
And it might be that situation. It might be that situation where, I'm going to avoid something because I have other people with me that I'm going to care for, and I'm going to get them out of the situation. It's like, I don't go out every day looking for a fight, right?
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Right. But if I get in one, I'm going to be ready, right?
Yeah, you got to be good for it.
So physically able to do that and all those kind of things. But, so I'll take that responsibility on too, with the folks that I'm hanging around, and I'll know their capabilities. So most of the people that hang around are more than capable to take care of themselves, but, which gives you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a good security blanket to have.
Yeah,
people around you that aren't just going to freak out when
right.
the minute hits.
It's like what's the best thing? What's the best thing to take to a firefight?
Yeah,
more friends with guns, right?
That kind of carries me into we're gonna jump into your military career. I know people that are following the podcast are super excited to have you on. A bunch of fans. Obviously, you've seen and done it all. You've been all around the world and everything, and so I do want to jump into that, but. Just considering we're already on this topic, might as well ask because it's getting a ton of hayway right now and people talking about it. Trump talking about sending Delta Force or just special forces in general down to operate against some of these cartel groups, some of these, different kingpins. How do you see that? Do you think that makes sense? Do you think that we should be looking to send some of these, whether it's the unit or just any group down there? And what do you think that combat would go like?
Well, so I haven't heard that. Did he actually say that? Mm-hmm. So there are...
not the unit directly, but he did say special forces.
Yeah. And I think, special forces has been involved with South Central America. That's her responsibility. So back in the day, they were working the whole Colombian stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and mostly it's on a foreign internal defense kind of a situation, right? You'll go train your folks to combat that problem is so complex though. So you can go down there, unit guys go down there to start schwacking people, right? Cut the head off the snake, right? But it's so complex down there. So it's political corruption. It's the cartels, and then they're fighting themselves for turf wars and stuff like that. So internal corruption, local corruptions in the cities, and everybody who's facilitating their activity, right? But they did just pass a bill in this administration to use DoD assets in America. So the whole Posse Comitatus thing, I don't know what the intent for that was. But now DoD can be used in the United States. So that was, that's a more recent thing. That maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah. It was
something like that.
Yeah. I think it was about 2 months ago because Dale was speaking about this as well.
Yeah. So so that's how complex it is. So they're not just in Mexico. Mm-hmm. They're not just in Central and South America anymore. They're here. So that's the problem that you can't create. If you just focus on south of the border. You focus on south of the border, and then guess what? They tell their guys here, hey, start stirring up the nest in the States. Now we have issues everywhere they're at in the United States, right? So then there's the open border thing, right? So there's free access. So when we talk about a strategy for now against all that stuff, it's huge. It's part of it here in the States too. And there's not enough local law enforcement in most cities and all that stuff to, that would be like a huge joint effort in the States, on the border, south of the border, Central, South America, all that stuff. And that trafficking lane goes way down south. So there's a lot of folks that are involved, a lot of corrupt politicians, a lot of corrupt city officials, mayors, and all that kind of stuff. That's huge. So, yeah, you could get heavy-handed with it and start just schwacking people. But then we have other issues. So all the other little fires that are going to start erupting, even in the States, is going to be huge. So, yes, it could be. And the guys would, absolutely. They get a mission, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to get the job done, right?
And they're going to put them down pretty quick, I don't think.
But we've seen that over the years too. You cut off the snake's head, right? Another snake arrives, right, to take over. So we've hopefully learned that lesson several times.
Yes.
And so it is a huge complex issue.
Yeah.
So should the unit, SF, and all that stuff be involved? Absolutely. So we used to have in the early 80s, they had a joint task force. So there was military on the border, and mostly it was observation and reporting of activity, all the rat lines coming across the border. I can't remember. It was a SF reserve group, I think, that was doing that. 7th SF group was down in South and Central America working the whole Colombia drug trade and all that kind of stuff. So now that just moved a little bit further north. And Colombians still involved in that stuff. Venezuela and everybody else, right?
Yeah, they all got their hand in it at some point.
Yeah. So it's huge, a very complex issue. And I think if it's looked at like that, and especially on consequences, repercussions that will happen here if we start down south. So it's almost like, unfortunately, we have to start, in my mind, with a central focus here in the States and then push outward, right? And then it could be used, simultaneous stuff can go on, but it's so bad right now. Like right now, it's like immediate emergency kind of situation here in the States.
Yeah.
The deportation stuff, that's great. It's not all if you're not here legally, then we'll take you back home, wherever that is, right? And then come back. Absolutely. If you want to come back, but do it legally, right? Build the wall, put the wall back up, restrict the border, control the border, however that happens, whether it's a wall or whatever. And then control all the things in house, support law enforcement, do what they have to do here in the States. If they need backup with military, we have that letter now with the DOD to use it, right? So, and again, I don't know what the intent of that letter was, but now it can be used. It can be, when you look at it in two different ways too, on that particular DOD guidance, you can look at that too as an when you look at it as an oppressive kind of thing, like they're going to use the military to restrict me, like for not doing anything.
That's what Dale was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that abuse of power kind of thing that could happen with that particular kind of stuff. So that's got to be,
got to be wary of.
Yep.
That slippery slope.
Yep. And it's the same thing that happened though in 9/11 when planes fell out of the sky, and you got all that other stuff, and then they abused those all those policies too to spy on Americans and made that okay. So it's just got to be watched very closely. I'm back and forth on what I think about that DOD guidance is.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the first people to really point this out, which I think is incredibly interesting. Is like, I had a narco journalist that just came on and we were talking about it. El Miles Zambada, who was kingpin of Sinaloa, just got arrested. Now they're having their own little civil war and whatever. People don't realize that it's not just happening in Mexico, it's happening in the U.S. as well, because with all the migrants that have come through, and also people haven't talked about this, since those cartel bosses have been, hitting the Forbes list since the 80s at this point, they've been able to get dual citizenship for people and their families. So they have people right over here. I'm having John Norris come on in a couple weeks, and he's talking about in Northern California, which we can see why that, it's red as can be, is cartels are growing weed up there because they're, loosely legal. It's legal. So they're able to travel and everything, selling it. And they're getting in gunfights with park rangers and stuff that are trying to monitor the area.
Yeah.
It's crazy. This is happening in the US, but you go on MSM, it's dead silent about any of that, They're not talking about that.
Yeah. So, legalize marijuana. All right. What are the consequences of that action, right? Those are the things that typically 1 or 2 levels deep that nobody talks about. You only get the headline, and it's like, yeah, okay. Why would you? Why would you limit that? Why not do it? Right. Well, then, what's a politician's reasoning to do that? Right. To tax it and get more revenue that way. First of all, we're taxed more than enough as it is, right?
Yeah.
You're taxed when you earn it. You're taxed when you spend it. You're taxed when you save it. Taxed when you die with it.
Yep.
It's a never-ending thing. Then when you get it back later on in savings, you're taxed again if you withdraw it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a never-ending thing. And then it's federal, county, cities. It's crazy. So that's another thing. It's like, yeah, we could do that. Let's make it legal so we can tax it, like cigarettes, right? It's like, yeah, no. For all those kind of reasons. So many of the issues like that have more, consequences and more like hidden agendas. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that aren't like dug into enough by today's journalists, right? Yeah. It's like, why do you want it legal? And because it's harmful and it's not the transition drug everybody thinks it is. Okay, so what are we going to tax it? How are you going to control this? Because you got to control it. It's a government thing now.
But the taxes create the black market too, because cartels are thriving off of, again, this is what, John Ross talked about, is they're growing it and then they can sell it essentially legally in California with very little restrictions. Like they get caught with it. They're like, we're going to take this. And they sell it, let's say like an eighth of whatever is they can sell it for $20. And then if you go to a dispensary, it's $60. Well, people are still going to go buy the $20 bag of weed because they're not going to want to spend $60 if they can just spend 20 and it's the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? So, the taxes and, all the restrictions you put on it creates that type of environment where, in its own way, it's the purest form of capitalism where they're finding the cheapest version you can do.
Yeah. And
like you said, you're just empowering these cartel groups in the U.S. And so I think that's incredible you brought that up because everyone I've talked to that says that it's very, they're very focused on what's happening on the other side of the border. They forget that there's a lot that's happening over here that's directly connected with what's happening there.
Yeah. And is that, given the benefit of the doubt on, even their ability to strategize that as a plan, right? Mm-hmm. I think they are. I think they were from the start. And it's just from even from just a logistical, just from supporting it logistically. I want to have people on the other end to receive it and distribute it, right? Makes perfect sense. If you're talking, in what little business, education that I have, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you're going to get a logistical thing going.
You create a pipeline.
And I want my people to receive it because I'm going to hold them accountable. So you got an accountability thing, right? Which it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. And guess what? They are here. And we're running into them all the time. Law enforcement and arresting people. And they're associated with whatever cartel and, name the country. Mexico, Venezuela, the Sinaloa, all those folks.
Yep.
MS-13 and what's the deal? Well, what's their deal? There's so many things. So that's the complexity of all this stuff. And it's not just like one thing, like a drug task force. Every major city has drug task force, gang task force, and all that stuff. So what are they doing? Mm-hmm. Right? What are they allowed to do? And then they don't have a job anymore, really, if they get rid of the gangs in Dallas, as an example, right?
Yeah.
There's no gangs in Dallas. What do you need a drug task force for, right? Mm-hmm. Or a gang task force, right? So what's the deal in those cities where they have all these task force with all this huge employment stuff, and they still have the issue, and it's not getting better?
Yeah, one of the things, too, you highlighted there is they think of everything like a business. And the narco journalist I just had on, he was able to get pretty high to the top for a discussion with one of the bigger cartels. And they're actively preparing. They're shipping in weapons from all around the world. They're shipping weapons into the U.S., like very militarized weapons. He's saying there's even reports, which this blew me away, that they have javelins that they're currently using in the hills of like Sinaloa when they're, combating each other, using weapons like that. And they're preparing for possible, whether it's special forces that are going to be used against them or whatever they need to do in the U.S. And again, it's like, that's what he's saying. Is the environment we could create if they've been preparing with those type of weapons. Granted, Delta's going to kick the shit out of them, but if they're able to do stuff with that weapons, it's like, man, there's going to be some negative consequences that come with that, you know?
Yeah. And fortunately too, I think the Trump administration and has a better sense of, so from a soldier's perspective, absolutely. Think about the consequences. Yes. And even when I was active duty or even with the agency for that matter, it's like, yeah, I volunteered to do this and I volunteered to accept that risk. Right. And I'm going to do it. I'm not going to I'm still going to, mitigate as much risk as I can. Right. And no, I'm not here to die for your cause. And that might be a consequence of what happens, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to keep alive and keep going and keep fighting. Because I hear that a lot too. It's like, well, that's what the military is for. They're expendable. They sign up to die, right? It's like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody that I ever served with signed up to die.
Yeah.
So I think they have a better grasp on, like, Tulsi Gabbard said the same thing. It's like, have a little bit more thought about what's going to happen, because the consequences are death of American citizens. So that even wanting to do that yourself, even as a soldier, right? It's like, taking somebody's life, you got to put some thought into that. Even if you're a soldier on a mission, it's not something to just be casually thinking about, or put some thought into that, because that's what you're getting ready to do. And okay, roger that. This is my job. This is what has to be done to complete my mission, my task. And I'm a soldier. I'm going to do what a soldier needs to do. Same thing with self-defense, though, too. Same thing. I tell my students. It's like, hey, you're getting ready. You're training with me to learn how to take somebody's life. That's what you're doing right now. And so they're like, well, I don't know about that. It's like, well,
we're doing the training for a reason, brother.
Yeah. So I want you to think about that. Or if you're just going to do it for fun and have fun with guns and shoot paper targets, yeah, great. We'll do that too. You'll get good at that. But I always ask them, what are they there for? And self-defense is usually one of the things, or home defense, or those kind of things. It's like, okay, so I'm going to teach you how to do that. But think about what you're really asking yourself to do. Be prepared to do that. And if that's what you really want to do, be prepared to do that. Think about what you're actually getting ready to do. And I think the new administration coming in has a little bit more like a thoughtful process in, committing forces, committing troops.
That's actually what, going off of this is an interesting question is, you've served with Delta Force, again, we're going to get into this soon, and you worked with the CIA Global Response. Those two units, obviously, you're doing some very covert activities. You guys are operating all around the world.
Yeah.
When you're going up, and a lot of missions may come all the way from the top, right? Like, or at least the conversations are there.
Yeah.
How often do you think that those that are in power, maybe not currently, but in general, have an understanding of the type of stuff that Delta and the different CIA groups are actually doing? Like where you guys are operating, what you guys are actually doing?
It depends on the administration.
Mm-hmm.
My personal experience is I don't think, and I'm not saying pro or con, conservative or liberal things, but the politicians who are typically liberal have, I think, less forethought before committing troops and the consequences of that happening before they commit troops. So I'm speaking all the way from the 80s, right? And all the stuff since then to now. What I've seen and what I've experienced is like a misuse of armed forces and an overwillingness to commit troops from the liberal side. And they're the no war people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they used to be.
This is the Democrats, right? They've been more willing to commit troops right away and earlier on in the process than the conservative side, on the Republican side. And not that it hasn't happened on both administration, Republican or Democrat, but there always is I think more of a forethought on the consequences of the actions from the Republican side when they've committed troops to do things. And I've been on both sides of that, and in different administrations through all military and the agency life. And there's a lot more thought process in it. And like those consequences, like lives might be lost, and they will be lost. That's what happens. It's unfortunate consequences of war, right? So yeah, I've seen it. All the Democrats that have been in power during my time in service didn't do so well, and then usually they end up making mistakes. So it's a commitment. It's a level of commitment. You got to be willing to, make the commitment, knowing the consequences, and then living with it, right? And I've seen it where if you don't think about it in the front end, and then bad things happen, and people die, then it's like a knee-jerk reaction to, well, pull them out. I didn't expect that to happen. Like, no, keep going. I mean, realize this is what happens. This is what you already committed to. Then it becomes commitment to the mission or the cause, right? If you put that much forethought in the beginning before committing armed forces, then it was a just cause, right? And if it's a just cause, then also consider that these are potential consequences of that action, and then live with it and be committed to the just cause, right? And not because I was in Panama and it was called Operation Just Cause. But yeah, it's also, it applies to a lot of things in life too. But when you're talking about committing armed forces and our troops, so I'm probably more reluctant to, if I had that decision to make, more reluctant to do that. I'm going to find out other ways before I get to that point. Other options. What are my other options? Mm-hmm. If I'm a politician, then I'll do the politician thing. I'll do the, the diplomacy stuff. And that used to be a cool poster. I think it's out there somewhere. And it's a picture of guys doing cool stuff. And it's like when diplomacy fails, right?
Yeah.
Dudes going to town. So yeah, it should be when diplomacy fails, when all else has failed. Yes, have a strong military that can do what it needs to do when it's time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because one of the things that this happened a few years ago, I think at this point, where the Biden admin there's a couple of, I want to say it was unit guys, either unit or dev group, but it was one of the 2 tier 1 groups, where, there was some type of ceremony, some type, award, he was shaking hands with them, and they posted their faces online, like on their live Instagram account and everything.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was just showcasing such a disconnect of the admin, the people involved with the admin, and understanding what these groups, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, even infantry, but, especially when you get to the really highly specialized groups, what your operations call for, what you guys are doing daily, and what security requirements come around, like all those different things.
Yep.
And I was just amazed, I guess, because you would think that you would hope someone in that position of power would understand, or even around that position of power would understand all those parameters that go into, something like the unit, something like DevGru.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. I mean, we just talked about, Just Cause, and we'll get there in a little bit. It's hilarious. We have you just a couple weeks after Dale too. He had his good story there, but let's jump into, growing up and, where your interest in military started. So I guess we'll start with growing up. What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Southern California in LA suburbs, and from birth to 18 when I left to the Army, that's where I grew up. I can't pinpoint a time when I thought about this is what I'm going to do, like be a soldier, join the Army, join the military. Southern California and all my relatives, I can't think of one who hasn't been in the Army, the Marine, mostly the Marines. So in Southern California, the Marines are huge. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you typically do, because they must be doing a good job in recruiting in that area, because that's all you see. You see them in the high schools, you see it they're dress blues and all that stuff. Most of my family is Marine Corps history. Got some mostly Marines, all my uncles, my dad, and all those things. Cousins, Navy, Air Force, sprinkling Army here and there. And I don't ever remember, like this is what I want to do, or even seeing a cool movie and saying, yeah, that's what I want to do. I thought it was cool. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But was the movie The Green Beret came out in 67 or something like that. I saw that when I was a kid, and then it was a cool movie, right? But it was never like something that said, oh, I want to try that, right? Mm-hmm. It's like I didn't know. I still didn't know. It's like, that's some cool stuff, right? Never thinking I'd actually do some of that stuff one day, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there was a whole lot of like movies like that. So like a lot of Westerns. I always got into that stuff too, but I never thought, I'm going to grow up and be a cowboy, right?
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Or an Indian, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the cowboy, definitely not what people think the movies are like. Cowboy, just holding cows the whole time, basically.
Yeah, so I spent some time on a ranch, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and it's not all sexy stuff.
No, most cowboys back in the day, too. I had tons of family growing up in Arizona. I was always out there.
Yeah.
And we'd make trips up to Tombstone and everything where they do like the reenactments with the movie and all that still. And you find out the actual history of cowboys, and you're like, oh, so they're not all, gunslingers running around town to town. It's like, no, they got paid kind of shit money, slept in the barn, and brought the cows out to the pasture, and that was kind of what they did most of the time. And you're like, wow, we really romanticized that job, didn't we? We really brought that one up.
Yeah. I honestly don't.
So it was just kind of something always sitting in the kind of the back of your head, I guess.
It was an option.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like my only option either. Like some guys are like, I had to join the military, else I was going to jail, right? It wasn't my case.
Yeah.
I was like, that was an option for me. It was time to look for jobs, get in the workforce and all that kind of stuff. I did that, and I had a pretty decent job, and thought I was more following a more traditional, get out of school, go to get in the workforce and do those kind of things. Nice little supervisory management training program and all this stuff with a pretty large toy company at the time. So in Southern California, Mattel and all that stuff, they're all down there. Toys R Us, all that is where all this things started. That was a big thing. And really, one of the things that I thought I was going to do, because it's also Southern California, LA suburbs. So you're around Hollywood and that stuff a lot. Mm-hmm. So everybody has like, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something for the movie studios.
Yeah.
And it could be just driving a truck, but I'm going to do that for the movie studios because they're like huge employers in that area. Down the street from me was an actor. I can't remember his name. He's on the old Gunsmoke Western, right? He's the redhead guy in that one. And I saw him all the time, and I didn't put two and two together. It's like, oh, hey, that's the dude on TV, right? There was a stuntman who was in a lot of movies, and he had all the. So we're talking late 70s into 80s. So like the $6 Million Man was a series, a TV series, The Bionic Woman, and all that stuff. Huge, like stunt scenes. Like the whole thing is stuntmen just running around doing weird stuff, right? Crashing cars and jumping out of things. And so I knew them. I played, I was friends with all the two kids in that family. Knew Rocky was his name, I guess is what I would say a call sign, but that's what everybody called him. He's a stuntman, had his own little like studio, or he had things to jump on, swing on, airbags and trampolines, all that stuff to practice and be in shape for stunts, right? Little motorcycle track, little BMX track and all that stuff. So I was there a lot. And saw Chuck Connors, the old rifleman actor, right? He'd show up. And some of the other stuntmen that were pretty popular at the time, they'd show up. And I was like, hey, that's the dude I saw on TV, right? That's kind of cool. But I never really thought, like, never really starstruck with the guys. So it's like, hey, I just saw that guy in whatever, $6 Million Man or whatever, Bionic Woman, or one of those shows. And it was just one of those things. I was like, this is kind of cool. I like doing all this stuff though, because it was fun stuff, fun kid stuff. Boys being boys, riding motorcycles and dirt bike tracks and
doing flips on the bags and
shit. Crash, build a jump and jump your bike into the airbags and all those kind of things. Right, that was fun stuff. And then in high school too, they actually have some theater focused things you get into, and everybody gets into it there. You're either on stage, doing the acting stuff, and I was never that into that side of the house, but I was always into all the stage production stuff. So I thought I was going to do that, like stage production or stage, like making. We used to have to make things for our, and everybody enjoyed those things in high school. To like, we'll make this high school production of whatever, name of play, and it's going to be like the best ever.
Yep.
And so everybody there is so into it. They make realistic sets and all that stuff, and then you coordinate the change of sets during all the intermissions. I mean, it's a pretty elaborate thing, and you make movies. I took cinema and all these kind of things, and in these classes, you have to make a short film and all these other things, and so I thought that was my path, but I wasn't so into it that I pursued that ever. Like, this is what I'm going to dive into. It was just another thing that I was doing. It was fun. So the movie industry was something that I thought was going to be a thing. Got into the whole management training program for this huge toy company. I don't even know if they're around anymore. Toys R Us was the company. And I kept thinking, am I going to, so I kept thinking of the managers that were super over me and helping me through the program. It's like, I really don't know that I want to do what he does, right?
I don't want to be you.
Yeah, he's doing well and he's making a lot of money, and that's what the whole purpose is. And I was like, and I'm going to get fast tracked through this program to be a manager, and they're going to pay for college and all this other stuff and all these other programs I'm going to get into. And I was like, I should have been thinking, oh, this is it, right? But I was like, I wanted to do more. This is not exciting to me, and I need to do more active stuff. And then also, so my dad and a lot of folks in the Southern California areas, construction is a huge one. Mm-hmm. So if you're not driving around in a construction truck, you're in the movie industry doing something. It could be just catering too. And when I was in high school during the summers, I used to run into a bunch of other folks too. I used to work for a liquor store. I was a delivery back when we did that stuff. And I'd go to meet. I knew in the neighborhood that I lived in, there was so many actors, actresses, whatever they want to call themselves these days, men and women actors in the business that lived in my neighborhood. I didn't even know it, and just show up at their house and deliver whatever it is, milk and eggs, right? It's like, it's like, oh shit, you're I know you.
Yeah,
it's like,
I didn't even Jack know Daniels, really.
Yeah, I didn't know you lived like 2 streets down. Yeah. And we lived in middle class neighborhood. It wasn't expensive neighborhood we lived in. Very middle class. And I thought usually you live in the hills, like at the Sherman Oaks and the Encinos and all that stuff in LA and the San Fernando Valley. And but no, it's not where everybody lived. It's like, wow, there's everybody, they're living everywhere. Hell, even back in the day, there was the run into the Brady Bunch kids, right? I was like, what?
That's a good.
What are you doing? It's like they're hanging out at some house down around the corner. It's like, hey, that's
like the most popular family on TV.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing here, right? So that was just something that everybody, and there's still some of my family still involved with studios. So one of same family. So one of my cousins drives a truck for movie studios from wherever they're going on location stuff, tractor trailer stuff. The other guy, I think he's he works on sets, doing something. I'm not sure what exactly he does, but that's what he does. And that's what most people think they're going to end up doing in that industry somewhere, or construction or whatever else is going on in LA. There's a bunch of stuff going on there. It's so busy.
Yeah, it's very industry. I mean, you know, I said it growing up there as well. I remember even in middle school when we would put on plays and stuff, like you were highlighting, there would always be like Hollywood relevant people in the crowd, and they'd be like scouting. Like they would find kids and like they'd be like, "Hey, you should, you know, come out and try to do like this and TV shows and stuff and all that." And it was always just surreal, you know. It was everything revolved around it in one way or another. There was some kind of direct connection, and it was like you found yourself even construction. You know, they're building studios and all that. Like, there's so much that's it's the industry, and that's, you know, part of the reason it gets pretty crazy over there at times, but also part of the reason it's you know, successful as it is.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, and it's so when you see the but also I think for me it was like, so you actually do see literally behind the scenes, and it's not so, you know, sexy anymore. It's like,
it's not a movie.
There's a lot of people who are involved in making this stuff happen that, you know, that you just don't see. It's not glamorous. I mean, you get the people who are in front of the camera, and that's it. That they get all the credit for all that stuff, even if they have, you know, credits rolling and all that stuff. You're
not going to read the 200th name.
Yeah, I still don't know what a key grip does. Right? It's like I see it all the time. It's like, what does that dude do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't working. So the military was just an option, and it was one of many options. And I went to go talk to the recruiter, and of course I go to the Marine Corps recruiter because that's where my dad was at, and my uncles, and they're all like, you know, Semper Fi, all this other stuff. They got their flags flying all over the place, and it's like, okay, I go see what these guys are all about.
Yeah, like, I'll do that.
Yeah, and one of the things my dad said, one of several things he said was, just make sure you get a job you can use in the military that you can use when you get out. Because he wasn't expecting me, and neither was I, to do like a career in the military. I was like, okay. So when I did that, I asked the Marine Corps first, and, you know, how about this engineering stuff? You know, what are you guys doing? And that's all they said. They kept saying to me, it's like, well, let's get you in the Marines first, then we'll figure out what. I was like, no, I don't want to figure it out later. I want to know now. What are you going to have me doing? I need a job skill when I get out. So I don't know even what that means, but that's what I want from you to tell me what that is. And the only ones who were able to do that was the Army. And then the Army was the ones with the most exciting looking posters in their office, right? So you had the Marine Corps, dress right, dress band, all dress blues everywhere, and guys with tossing weapons and stuff and looking cool. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I went into the Army recruiting office, and there's all these posters, guys camied up and, you know, jumping out of planes and all that stuff. I was like, yes, this is what I want to do, right? And then I got to thinking as an afterthought, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to get a job skill. I'm supposed to get something marketable when I get out. I'm not sure about jumping planes and shooting guns and all that stuff is going to do something for me. So I asked him, how about this engineer thing, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, we got that too. Yeah, let's take a test first. We'll see where you're at. And because you might be one of, see the dude with the gun standing over there? You might be that guy. It's like, we'll see. So I took the test, and it's like, oh, guess what? Hey, we can make you an engineer. You know, good for him. He's got one of the more qualified guys to recruit, right? And then all the sexy stuff was going away. He's like, we'll make you an engineer. I was like, so what is an engineer?
Guys still do the cool
shit.
Can I
still do all that cool stuff, right? He's like, so yeah, you can. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I was getting fed full of shit, but he got me in. He recruited me, so I was like, all right. So when I got in and found out what my actual job was, great. It's like construction engineer stuff. I'm going to work. It's going to be cool. But I still wanted to do the cool stuff. Yeah. And so that's eventually I ended up doing, and one after the other, as I wanted to do more cool stuff. And it's like, okay, I want to do more cool stuff. And then 20 years later,
you ended up doing a lot of cool shit.
I'm getting ready to retire. It's like, wow, okay. Yeah. So that was the thing. And really, if I had, yeah, blame my dad for it because he told me those two things that I actually listened to. To get a job skill that's marketable on when you get out, and don't leave the military, with something undone.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, do it because you're not going to get an opportunity again, and then get out. So 20 years later, I'm retired from the military. It's like, all right, I did everything I wanted to do. There's nothing left to do. Okay, it's time to get out.
So your process, where you eventually got to Delta Force, but just your general first couple years in the military, you were a lot of different places doing a lot of different training and everything. So can you maybe just walk through that timeline? Because that's, just from the top to the bottom there, every time I was like, I can't even believe.
Yeah. So I was so clueless about the military and how military works and all this other stuff. I just thought, hey, well, if I want to do something, then and not a lot of people want to do that same thing. Why is it an issue, right?
Can't they just do it?
You need people to do that, and I want to do it. Let's just sign a paper, let me go. So many things going on though, and in my young soldier life that I didn't know, like hierarchy of things, big old Defense Department and U.S. Army stuff, right? So all the things that were going on at the time. So I still wanted to do all these exciting things, jump out of planes and do cool stuff. So I volunteer. So I hear, you don't hear a whole lot back then. So we're talking the 80s, early 80s. So there's internet's not a thing. And so there's no YouTube and anything else. So you're not seeing a lot except whatever you're exposed to. And I hear about these dudes, these Ranger Battalion guys, and infantry guys doing cool stuff and special forces. And yeah, that's one of the posters I saw, right? And that was really one commercial back then when I first signed on. I think that was the Be All You Could Be time frame, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the commercials was the guy getting off the plane. He had a black beret, right? And he's getting off the plane. He's on leave, meets his family, and they're not pushing Ranger stuff. But later on, I find out, hey, that was a Ranger. Like, who's the dude with the black beret, right? Because he looked like he was doing pretty cool stuff, right? And so that's what I try to do. And the military has these things. I actually called, it's not what you traditionally do, and how you get around the Army. I don't know. I was like 2 years in or something like that. And so I call them down. I called the 1st Ranger Battalion down at Hunter Army Airfield. And so you have these phone books with every number to every organization in the Army or in the military, including Pentagon numbers. And so I was on duty one night and I saw that book as I'm thumbing through there. I was like, 1st 75th Ranger Battalion. It's like, oh, here's all the numbers I need right here, right? And here I started calling these numbers, and hey, how do you get to, I want to be a Ranger kind of thing, right? To another, I don't know, I was lower enlisted, so probably an E2 or E3, right? PFC, and I'm calling down, and it's like, hey, I want to be a Ranger. How did I get down there? And I'm talking to a similar guy who's on duty all night like me. He's an E2 or E3. Yeah. And just the fact that he answered the phone, like Ranger PFC, whatever, can I help you? I was like, I want to be where you're at, right? And he's like, hold on a sec. Let me get somebody who might know something more than me. And then subsequently, I ended up talking to Sergeant Major Carpenter, who was the 1st Ranger Battalion Sergeant Major at the time. The next day, they say, call back. I get like E5 and then an E6 or something that night. And they say, call back at this number after 9 o'clock or something like that. And talk to, he gave me 2 names. One was Sergeant Major Carpenter. And I was like, Sergeant Major? I'm going to talk to a Sergeant Major that quickly? It's like,
what I set myself up for.
I might have just screwed up. I think I'm in trouble, right? You don't talk to Sergeant Majors as an E2 and a PFC in the Army. And sure enough, on my ended tour, I went back to the barracks and I waited till 9 o'clock, called back. And I talked to this, I can't remember his name, as E7 personnel NCO down at 1st Ranger Battalion on our Army Airfield. And he said, okay, yeah, he's, hold on a minute. Let me get him because he's expecting your call. It's like, holy shit. Talking to this Sergeant Major. It's like, wow, okay. And he's like, Sergeant Major Carpenter, yeah, who am I speaking to? And I was like, whatever, Private Porras, whatever it was, whatever rank I was. It wasn't much. And I said, he's like, I hear you want to be a Ranger. I was like, roger that, Sergeant Major. And he's like, okay. He's like, where are you at? And I was at Fort Drum at the time. He's like, what unit are you in? What organization are you in? And I told him I was in whatever, 76 Engineer Battalion. I can't remember the company. And he's like, engineers. He's like, are you a combat engineer by any chance? I was like, well, I have that as a MOS. Yeah, but I held several MOSs, but engineering is like the construction engineering is what I primarily do. He's like, well, we don't have any of those over here. So let me tell you what you can do. And I was like, just taking notes on what he's saying, right? And I had that notebook all the way through until I got, for years later. This is what Sergeant Major from the 1st Ranger Battalion is telling me what I need to do. Get the airborne school. You'll get to a reenlistment point, reenlist for this, do that. And so for that list that I had from him, I kept it. And I did everything on that list, right? And then at one point, I got to the stopping point, and Big Army's doing some big stuff, right? Which I have no clue what's going on. And I finally get the change my MOS from engineering. I finally get, well, you keep all those, but I got the 11 Bravo Infantry MOS, and then I was like, okay, that was the last thing I had to do. So
you're like, I'm good to go.
I'm good to go, right? And then Big Army has other bigger plans for me, and they're wanting to send me to California at the time. And I was like, so they actually give me orders to go to California, and it was one of those things where it's like, that's not where I wanted to go.
Yeah,
it's like,
aren't I arranging?
yeah. I wanted to go east, the Hunter Army Airfield to Savannah, Georgia. It's like, yeah, 1st Ranger Battalion, right? And they're like, no, and 7th Infantry is where I ended up going, but but in the interim, it's like they want you to go to California. I want to go east. And so I'm already at Fort Benning at the time. So I was like, all I'm going to do is walk across post and say to the Ranger Regiment now, I was like, I'm going to go sign in. I'm going to just go do it. It's like, what's the worst that can happen, right? And so I do that. I go sign up. I go through this hazing. And I say the same thing in person that I said on the phone like 2 or 3 years before that. It's like, I want to be a Ranger. And so they were all about it. It's like, yeah, nobody does that. Nobody comes to our doorstep and says, I want to do it. They go through the process, right?
I completed the list. Come on.
It's like, it's on my list of things to do. Let me in, right? And so I go through the hazing. I go through all the stuff. And they actually, I think that I've made it. I'm exactly where I wanted to be. So I signed in. They signed me in. Signed me up for what was called the Ranger Indoctrination Program. It was what it's called now, or what it was called then. It's called RAS, I think now, Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, or something to that effect. I think it's maybe changed even now. But it was RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, and ROPE. So it was an E4, I think. Huge. Another huge promotion. Mm-hmm. And so it made me go to RIP and then ROPE, which is a Ranger Orientation Program for E5 and above folks going to Ranger Battalion. And did those, pass them, all that stuff. I was fine. And but there was still the orders that were having me go still in
out west.
Yeah, and the shadows looming over me. And so that was really what all the personnel NCOs and everything that were working to get those orders changed. At the time, though, they were taking people out of Ranger battalions, and the 82nd and all the other airborne light infantry, all that stuff. They're trying to make this new light infantry thing a thing. 10th Mountain Group and all that kind of stuff is happening at the time. And I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. That's not where I want to do. I want to go over there, right? I'm still in that headspace, right? And so I'm only one guy. What's the big deal, right? Just let me go where I want to go, right? It's like, well, it's I was totally clueless on those things. But they kept me, and they were kept trying to fight for me at Ranger Regiment. And I was there a year and a half or something like that, while they were still trying to get me transferred and get those orders changed. But at the time, the units are trying to staff the 7th Infantry, the 10th Mountain Group, or 10th Mountain Division. They're trying to staff all those things. So nobody has any clout right now in the Army. So you get orders, you got to go. Eventually, so at the time too, I'm getting opportunities to go to Ranger School as a walk-on. So I'm at finish rope, and then I'm an E4. And to go into Ranger Battalion as an E4, almost getting ready for E5. That's coming. It doesn't take a long time to do that. You got to be Ranger qualified. You got to get to Ranger School, get the tap. So they were sending me to Ranger School as a standby walk-on. And that was pretty common at the time. They probably still do it, but you show up. There's a group of guys that show up, and because Ranger Regiment's there, and now 3rd Ranger Battalion, they used to send guys to Ranger School and wait for somebody to drop out of the PT tests or something. Whoever drops out of the initial, tests and gets kicked out, you're standing there waiting to jump in their slot, right? So I did that several times, and but it was back in the day too, and it was Ranger School.
Yeah,
like your first week is all hazy and getting just jacked up.
What was some of the shit that? Well, if you're able to speak to it a little bit, what was some of the shit that they'd be doing?
The hazing.
Yeah.
So they used to have the Derby team, I think is what they called them. And actually I met my one of the instructors that was at Ranger School at the time I went through, who was on the Derby team. They just harass you. They just anything you do is not right, and you're gonna do push-ups, running, squats, something. Remember, so all you have to do during this time frame is remember the Ranger Creed, right? Recite the Ranger Creed, complete the obstacle course, the Derby Queen, and do all the things that they ask you to do. And it's just about gut check.
Yeah.
And that was it. So I went through that. I went through that 3 times. Because I go through a certain phase. So once at the time you go from Fort Benning, I gotta remember it was Fort Bliss or Dugway Proving Grounds for desert stuff. Then you go to Florida for Florida phase, and you're in the mountains of Dahlonega, Georgia for mountain phase. So those are, again, I don't know big Army stuff at the time. These are all temporary duty assignments from Fort Benning to go to do these things. Well, I couldn't go TDY because I wasn't assigned there yet. I was still supposed to be in California at the time. So they're trying to get me. All they do is tell me that I can't go to the next phase because they can't give me TDY orders because I'm not assigned to Fort Benning. So it's like, okay, you're going to have to go through day 1 again. It's like, all right, whatever. I did it once. I'll do it again. And this is what I want to do. So where am I going to go?
Yeah.
So I do that. Another time, and the second time was all the way from day 1. And then the third time this happens, they're like, come on. It's like, you've already done this 2 or 3 times, and you're not failing and being recycled back to do it again because you failed. It's like, it's an administrative thing. So eventually they said, don't worry about that. We're just going to wait for the next class that goes to, I think it was Dugway Proving Grounds, to do desert. We'll just wait for the next. I'll just keep waiting for the classes to rotate through to go to do that phase. And that never works out. Eventually they can't change the orders. And eventually the Army considers me, because I didn't sign in at Fort Ord, California. Yeah. I was AWOL. So they're carrying me AWOL, and I'm in Ranger School. And I finally I'm on one of the classes. I don't know how many classes in Ranger School, but some of them overlap into the holidays, right? So you get a holiday break. That was one of the classes I was in, and I go on holiday break. And my wife at the time who's living locally in Columbus, Georgia, she says, "Hey, we haven't been paid since, payday." It's like, what's up? It's like, so let me go find out. So I go find out, and it's like the first time I had to do that, it was just a matter of going to the finance office on Fort Benning, and you give them a little form that says you weren't paid. They check it out. It's like, okay, here's your pay. We don't know what happened, all this other stuff, administrative errors and all this other crap they give you. The second time that happens, I go back. It's like, I haven't been paid again. And that's when I get arrested because I come up on their AWOL list. And it was like, here's it's just, here's the paper I got from my personnel office. And then this is what I get to give you to show that somebody's hacked off on this, that I didn't get paid. And dude behind the counter calls supervisor, who's a lieutenant calls a captain, captain calls the MPs, and the MPs come and arrest me. And as I'm sitting in line, I even saw the MPs coming in. It's a finance office, so there's MPs and people in there. And I didn't think they were there for me, because what did I do?
Yeah.
Right. And they finally, it's like, just hold on a second, Specialist Porras, just wait there for a second. And then the captain comes out and finally says, "These men are here for you, and just go with these guys." It's like, MPs, what's happening? And I get arrested and go to the MP station, and because I'm AWOL, this is the first time I find out that this is what's going on. And I think it's a total mistake on their part. It's like, AWOL, no. I've been in Ranger School. I'm assigned over here to Ranger Regiment.
Yeah,
No,
I had to do that shit 3 times.
Yeah, I'm starched jungle fatigues. I got my black beret on. It's like, no, do I look like an AWOL soldier? It's like, I don't know what they look like, but do I look like one? And this is total madness. And eventually, the regiment headquarters, where I'm attached to, they come over to the MP station and they say, "No, he's one of our soldiers. He's not AWOL. He's been with us the whole time." And they validate and verify and all this other stuff for whatever they needed to have information. And they released me to their custody. And then they said, well, then I get the whole spiel about, we've been trying to get your orders changed and they just can't. This is eventually what gives you the AWOL status, and we can't do anything about it. We're stuck. We've tried everything we can try, and we can't. The only thing that's left up to you to do is to pack your bags, move, and go to Fort Ord, California, sign in, and then that will clear your slate, your AWOL thing. That's the only thing you can do to clear that. I was like, what the hell? So it's like, so I got to leave. I got to leave and go to California. I don't even know what is there in California, right?
Yeah.
Never heard of the base, never heard of the 7th Infantry Division, all that stuff. And it's new. It was deactivated, now it's being reactivated and then being staffed. So they were very helpful, though. The regiment was very helpful. So it wasn't like just go. I was actually, you get paid to move when you're in the military. So they paid me all that stuff to move. Moved out to California, signed in there, and they were all about, don't worry about it. You'll be able to come back. Just once you get there, sign in, and then let them know this is what you want to do, and come back to us and fill out this paperwork. It was called a 4187. Those never work. And then you'll be able to come back. It's like, okay. And so I do that, get to Fort Ord, sign in, move into housing and all that crap, and fill out this 4187. I was like, yeah, you're stuck. It's like, fuck, what's going on? It's like this. I mean, okay. So I'm gonna do what I need to do wherever I'm at. I'm gonna do what if I'm here. Okay, this is it.
Yeah, you'll see what's next. We'll figure it out.
I'm gonna do my job, right? And so I get assigned. It actually ended up to be the next 2 assignments actually ended up to be one of the best things that ever happened to me as a developing in my leadership in the Army, and just the experiences that I had there. So it wasn't where I wanted to go, wasn't what I wanted to be doing, but it was infantry stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, Yeah, the two groups, I had there, two groups of soldiers that I had while I was there, just huge learning. I actually learned everything about being, a leader of troops there, because you because the difference between the regular Army, 7th Infantry Division, and folks like the 82nd Airborne Division and the Ranger Regiment is levels of discipline, right? Levels of discipline at the lower ranks, levels of discipline in the leadership ranks, and leadership in general in the leadership ranks. And the so you have disciplinary issues that you would not normally have in the other units, because otherwise they kick you out.
Yeah.
It's like you either pull the standards or you get kicked out. So you don't have to, as a leader, you don't have to
deal with some bullshit.
deal with a lot of BS. Somebody who doesn't want to perform to your standards, right? So that happens, and those are the leadership challenges that I have there that I would have never had, and forced me to do some less heavy-handed leadership stuff, right? Actually have to counsel people and talk to people and motivate a very unmotivated soldier to do things that they don't want to do. A lot of people don't want to do this thing, but it's like, hey, you're a grunt,
You signed up for this.
I'm going to make you be a grunt, whether you want to or not. It's physical fitness, it's other standards, it's shooting, it's all the other infantry stuff, but it's also just being a professional soldier, right? Wear a uniform. If we're in garrison, wear it, iron it, starch it, whatever you're going to do, right? Shine your boots, clean your room, those kind of things. Like it was like being a parent sometimes, right? To small kids sometimes, because you do have folks in the Army that's the first time they've actually had, structure and being held to being accountable for your actions, right? I don't have an option anymore to make my bed anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you got to keep everything straight, tidy, ready, and all this other stuff. Got to keep yourself physically fit.
Yeah, Dale talked about this as well, which I think this was an interesting contrast when we were comparing like Delta and SEALs. SEALs oftentimes are very, you're obviously with your team, you're operating in a very heavy group. Where, Dale was talking about Delta often, you guys are operating in a lot of different environments, and you often are working with people on the ground, especially if you're, Green Beret. He was talking about it, that his relationship with his Iraqis at the time was much more, they were a lot closer. They would really listen to a lot of the stuff he said. And he's like, as soon as we turn him over to the SEALs or stuff, they would just become, just all types of bullshit. And, it's interesting how much that leadership is a variable, and you guys being able to be independent operators and everything, or work behind enemy lines with, these groups, because, it's interesting hearing you say this, because I'm sure that, paid dividends during your time in Delta and also with GRS as well. But, having that leadership ability, especially when you're operating with, who the fuck knows who from what country.
Yeah.
You got to be able to create that relationship and get them to, to give a shit, who you're highlighting,
Yeah. It's a lot of things, right? It's integrity and, leadership. It's ability to mold your particular leadership style to whoever you're leading, whoever it is. And so that was good for me. Ultimately, it was to see so first of all, American troops vice any other soldiers that I've ever worked with, because our different moral, ethical values, a sense of accountability, all those kind of things. So some of the knuckleheads that we've had to train in other countries are just whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. You're only going to ever get to this level.
Yeah, really.
No matter how good you are, they're only going to get this level. So Americans, the fighting spirit and their mentality, they can be motivated by any number of things. But you can. This is my expectations. If you're here, I need you here. okay, roger that. Now I know what I need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get there, I'm going to help you get to that spot, right? Yeah, with all the other knuckleheads around the world that I've worked with, it's just horrible. But and they never get past like elementary school.
Yeah.
You're never going to get past that level.
Yeah, and you just know that. That's what you guys are.
Has nothing to do with my abilities, right? Because that's the thing too. It's like, some of the hubris of some of the guys that first do that for the first time, they're working with a foreign army somewhere, and they're not getting it, and they're not able to get them to get it, and it's because you're freaking knuckleheads, right? They're never going to get it. Just it has nothing to do with your ability to influence them and all this other stuff, right? Or your leadership abilities, right? And some guys get more heavy-handed. It's like, no, you will get. I'm going to beat this into you, right?
That never works.
It's like, it just gets worse, and it's interesting. One of the things that I did learn is like I've had some leadership challenges along the way. And at one point when I was at Fort Ord, I was the NCO that was, this guy's tried it with some NCOs tried it, tried to get them to perform the standards, and we've given them to somebody else, and they move them around a little bit to give them an opportunity to perform for somebody else. And then I became the last one. If Sergeant Porras can't make him a soldier, then we got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But I took it on as a challenge. Like, no, he signed up for it. And so it's just a matter of getting him to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lead, coach, mentor, whatever the technique and style is, that person needs a little bit more direction or a little bit more of a particular style of leadership to get them on board with everybody else. And then I held my junior leaders accountable. So as a squad leader, as an example, you have 2 team leaders. So I'd hold my team leaders accountable for their guys, and then individuals accountable for their individual acts. And it seemed like a winning combination. So I don't know that I had anybody that I couldn't like get to perform or lose. Sometimes it was losing weight, doing better in a physical fitness plan or program. And it was never, I'm going to make you be like me. It's like, I'm going to make you be the best you, right? That's all I'm going to expect out of you. So it seemed to figure out like, pretty successful combination of things for folks. And then the thing you want in like military leadership, and kind of applies to a lot of other things too, is like just willful compliance without being supervised. They're going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hold somebody accountable like that, and because they're afraid of the consequences of not doing it, or like, oh, Sergeant Porras is going to kick my ass. He's going to kill me if I don't do this, right? Or it's like, no, it's the right thing to do because he's taught me it's the right thing to do. So there's a little bit of that, along the way. It's like, oh no, he's going to kill me if I don't do this, right? Mm-hmm. Or I don't know. And then it's just like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. I know now it's the right thing to do. It's little tasks and it's big tasks, and then it's all collective tasks. That's ultimately what I'm responsible for, is get all these guys to do things that you wouldn't normally want to do in bad situations. And fortunately, I got to see it in action too. Eventually, when we get to Panama and Just Cause, I see the different. You really don't know until you're in those environments if you're doing the right thing, by what this other person might be doing, another NCO's doing with his guys to prepare them for that eventual day. But it worked out. And it wasn't like, okay, well, that's the magic. That's the secret sauce to everything. It was just one level of learning in how to be a leader, how to manage guys, and how to get guys to do things that you wouldn't normally want to do, or probably shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And do it willfully without any supervision, or less supervision than Yeah, and that happens. I've seen it in the corporate side of things too. Some people need more supervision than others to get a task accomplished. But trying to get to the point where you can supervise or supervise them less. Like
they can be an independent
and already know they're going to do what you want them to do. So that was a huge learning experience. I don't think I would have got if I went straight into Ranger Regiment. Because all those dudes just want to be there.
Yeah.
It's like crush. How hard is that, right? Go crush that. Roger that. Ranger smash.
We'll jump a quick break here, and then we'll start getting into Panama and all that. So,
okay.
All right. Well, jumping back into it, you're talking about some of the key situations that kind of really pushed that leadership and also helped it happen. I'm guessing Panama is definitely one of them. So, can you speak to that? And again, it's funny.
Yeah.
Having you on just a couple weeks after Dale, when we got to dive into this from what he was doing at that time as well. So
yeah, Panama was cool. So we were down there most of that summer in '89. So as it's deteriorating the situation, we were down there just convoy escorts and stuff like that up and down the Panama Canal, and moving people, escorting stuff from base to base down there and all that stuff, and then. We actually go home, probably, I don't know, November timeframe, probably Thanksgiving, and then end up turning around a month later after the December 20th. And we're called, now we're deploying, going to war in Panama. It's like, what, really?
We just came from there. It was fine. Yeah.
So that was, it was interesting. But I went down there. So there was a lot of, it was interesting in a lot of ways. So when you hear about, and I've heard up to that point, you hear about folks, how they're going to perform under pressure, how they're going to perform when it's for real. Nobody even knows until you actually do it. And then it happens, and then it's like, okay, now that makes sense. So you see the more false bravado, which ends up what it ends up being, all the really super motivated guys, all the guys talking shit, and it's like, I'm gonna kill somebody, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need to hear that. I just need you to perform when it comes time to it. And then those guys are the ones who are less performing in the real environment than others. And it happens at the leadership level, happens at the soldier level. And I was very happy with the guys, with my guys, and then seeing other folks that were not willing to do it. So not willing to go to war, go in combat with your leaders, right? Some guys were like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's like, the guys are, no. All my guys right behind me the whole way. And it's like, let's go do this. I didn't even think about it. It's like, we got another mission. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, let's go do it. So what are we doing? And it's just amazing. And there were some times. There was one time we're going to this one target, and we're following this one kid who was supposed to lead us to this one building where the bad guy was. And it's in this little shantytown thing, and the guy had leading the squad. So he's the point man. So he's up front and making our way through this little shantytown, and we get to this one area where the shantytown kind of breaks up. Kind of opens up a little bit, and I don't know about what they were all the guys were thinking, but I was thinking, holy shit, this is not good. Yeah, this something's gonna happen right now, because it's like ambush. I just felt this overwhelming thing, like we're getting ready to get ambushed, and that's what I say now in my situational awareness classes. If you feel something, but you're not really seeing things, understand something's happening.
Yeah.
So
your gut's telling you the right thing.
Yeah, that was my thing back then. And apparently it was not just me. And I'm just wanting to get through this open area real quick and back into this little shantytown area where it gets nice and congested, and this is a mess. But the kid, he takes off, not running, but he took off around and disappeared into the shantytown. And they're just little narrow passageways. And they're irregularly just paths going through this little town or literally cardboard, plywood.
Is it kind of like a
huts.
favela type setup where it's in like like the little huts and kind of like
Yeah.
you can go from rooftop to rooftop or the angle, like, there's small little narrow. Yeah.
It was just no method to the madness.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it was in, this is in Panama, and this is in a low ground in Panama. So there was a creek or a river or something like that. So it's also floods. So in the heavy rainy season, it floods. So everything's on some sort of elevated platform, not stilts, but they're off the deck. So the kid disappears, and my guy up front, he loses him. He's like, where did he just go? And so he stops the patrol. And I was like, he stops the patrol at the worst possible moment. We're in the middle of this open field. I'm thinking ambush. I'm getting ready to see tracer rounds flying out of the woods at us, right? And so I go up to the front. I was like, find out what's going on. I was like, hey, what's going on? And he's whispering. He's like, I can't do this. It's like, what do you mean you can't do this? You can't do what?
Jeez.
I was like, I lost the kid. And I don't know where he went. I can't. He thought he was going to lead us into something bad, because that's what he was like feeling. Like that kid just ran off, and if we run after him, I'm going to lead us into something bad. That's where his head was at. I was like, well, okay, well, I feel worse here than over there. So I was like, are you sure? And there wasn't time then to like, hey, who wants to take point, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so I was like, all right, hey, everybody get up, follow me. So I took the lead, and we went into the village and found the kid. The kid finally, as soon as we rounded the corner and got into this shanty town, the kid backed up, like, where'd you guys go? He backs up, looks around the corner, and it's like you little because he did that. We're all jacked up, ready to shoot something and get shot at, and he disappears. Then he pops back out. It's like, hey, over here. It's like, whoa, you little son of a bitch. And he's like, follow me. And so we follow him. He passes us through the target building, and we raid the target building, and we end up getting the guy. We got clown show at the door. That was funny shit happens when you're
what happened there?
So it was like, we rehearsed this hit in a nice sterile environment where we were staged, the whole battalion or company, whatever was there in this place, our staging area. So we're practicing breaching, door breaching, and all this other stuff. We don't have explosives, so we're not going to explosively breach anything. And the shantytown stuff, not that we weren't explosively breaching, because we don't do that. We don't have it. But if any explosives went off, you're talking about destroying a whole, like everything around it, that building plus all the ones around it. So it was a manual breach. So sledgehammers. So we're practicing that. We're practicing all, rehearsing and all this stuff before we go down there. And so when we get to this door, we're practicing on a flat surface with it's on the building that I chose on this facility was on the ground. Doorknobs at a normal doorknob height and all of this stuff for practicing and rehearsing. We get to this house, and this house is on stilts. So the level of the floor was probably chest level. Mm-hmm. And so now the door handle is above us. So, and it's plywood or, half-inch plywood. It was nothing. And a door that's just like tied together with some sort of twine or something. It's not a regular doorknob or anything like that, but the attachment device, it was just one of those little, like a hook into a little, like a shitty little gate kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, well, this is our breach point, and everybody gets prepared around this door, and the steps to go to this door. So it's maybe 3 or 4 steps, and they're made of waterlogged wood. So even to go up to the door, as I put one foot on the steps, you can feel it kind of giving a little bit. Yeah, and so I was probably what, I don't know, 200 pounds plus all my another 200 pounds of lightweight kit, right? It's like, so it's flexing. And I was like, okay. So had my breacher. He comes up with a sledgehammer, and now he's got to swing the sledgehammer over his head to hit this locking mechanism to open the door. And he does. So we got security. He goes for this sledge on the door. The sledgehammer sticks in the door. But it sticks, but it opens the door. But the sledgehammer is stuck in the door, and it flies in with the door. And now it's like, okay, what the hell do we do now, right? And then it's like, let's go, right? But as soon as we start stepping on those steps, they're breaking and flexing.
Yeah.
So no more steps. We still got to get chest level. So then, all right, Rod did that immediately. I can't remember. It was probably the one I had breaching. I want to say that was Smitty, but so he goes right down on all fours. My back is now your step, right? Automatically. It's like, oh, just like clockwork, just like we've always ever practiced it, right? So everybody starts stepping on him, and there's still, so a person, him on his knees is still, we still have another, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet to the bottom of the floor. So we're crawling into this thing, step on his back, crawling into this thing, going in, so it's nothing cool about, CQB, oh, you go left, I'll go right. And we're just going to, start slaying people, slaying bad guys, right? Yeah, it wasn't that at all. So we're crawling into this thing, and then, from the floor, laying down on the floor, just looking for targets, finally getting to our feet. And then most of the shanty towns are just like one rooms, like one rooms with, there's a bed in the corner and a cooking something over here on a table, and it's all one thing. So this guy, when we went in, crashed this one door, and we go into this breach point. He ended up getting out the back, and guys wrapped him up when he was running out the back. So some of the other guys that were on security on that side of the facility got him when he ran out. But yeah, that's one of those things. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah, but we got the
job done, right? And that was one of the things I said afterwards. Like, well, in a hot wash, critiquing our performance that night. It's like, okay, so at this point, yeah, okay, we could do this, that, and the other thing better.
I'm just imagining the door getting, like, the hammer getting stuck in the door and just being like, oh, shit.
Yeah. That is like a real no shit moment. That's what you say when that happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what do you do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go.
So when you were down there, this is probably one of the first times you've seen a lot, especially with, having a lot of guys kind of working under you. Mm-hmm. Was there any like specific scenarios in terms of direct combat that stuck out where, that was obviously a great example as well, but just very stressful situation, whether that's, guys either getting hit or anything like that. Like, was there any situation that stood out to you that within the combat there that was very, I guess, had pushed it to the limit in terms of your leadership ability and those guys like working under you?
Pushed it to the limit. How do you mean?
Just a scenario that, as you were saying, like people when they're under fire really show you who they really are. A lot of those guys that, have been working with for a while.
Yeah. So no, that was what, that's what I got out of this whole thing. Right. So my guys didn't question anything like that I told them to do, because up to the point of that, it's like I was always telling them, it's like, this training, how do you convince them that's the right thing to do, right? This is going to help you if we ever get into combat, right? You never know. Even as a leader, before going into that situation myself, I don't know either. This is just what I think will help us, right? But no, they did everything I asked them to do without question, which we just had that level of, I guess, understanding, right? And they trusted what I said, trusted my leadership and my decisions and all that stuff. And I was never one to blame other things on leaders, right? You know, because you hear that too in the lesser disciplined units, right? Soldiers are complaining about the leaders, and I've heard that. Like, I'll say something, whatever it is, and it was something that I was told to tell the troops, right, from a lieutenant or a captain, and it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. I'll go tell them, and then I hear this like, who said that? Like, in a kind of a sense, like, what dumbass would say something like that, right? But they say, well, who said that? And I said, I said it. You just heard me say it. I'm not going to say, well, this is Lieutenant somebody saying.
Yeah, where the pipeline.
I never did that. And then it shut him up right away. It's like, you just heard me say it. I just said it. Doesn't matter where it originated. I'm here telling you this. And so in my mind, you know, I've already had that discussion if it was not the right thing to do with a lieutenant or a captain, whoever said that, right? Or even another senior NCO. It was like, I've already had that conversation. So I've already agreed in my mind, and this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to pass on the information. So it's not like I never said that, like lieutenant or captain said this. It's like, when you hear it coming out of my mouth, it's me saying it, and you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's that time.
End
So that's the grunt life, right? Too. It's like, it's me saying it and you doing it. Don't ask them. Don't ask no questions. It's too late. You're already down so low on the totem pole. Trust me when I say those conversations already happened, and now it's just you executing.
Yeah, even if I don't like it, if I'm saying it, we're doing it.
Yeah. So I got to that point with my guys that, you know, that's the way it was, and so they trusted that a conversation. I'm not just going to do what somebody told me to do. If it's the right thing to do, absolutely, sure. But I've already had those discussions. I've already done my job as their leader to have those talks. And so I got to that point, which that was one of the things I think I've heard it, my similar guys in my same level of leadership were saying, hey, they don't want to be the bad guy, right? So they're like, hey, just do it because Lieutenant or Captain so-and-so wants it done.
Yeah.
I never did that. So, and so subsequently I had guys who were attached to me too, because I was at this one, our first assignment, the first night on the ground was to defend repel the counter assault of the Battalion 2000 coming down our road, right? It's like, what, me and my 8 guys? So then I'm like, okay, Bob, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it, right?
Yeah.
And so talking with my leadership, I was like, so my lieutenants and captains and stuff like that, they already knew that, hey, unfortunately, you're literally at the tip of this spear of this defensive position we got. And so we're going to give you another gun team. We're going to give you some more guys. And they were all happy to be there. Like, yeah, let's do this. Right. It's like, all right. So the other guys, the word is out. It's like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable being in this position with the leaders that I have with me. Right. So, but yeah, let me go with Sergeant Porras. Let's do this. And those are the discussions I had when we get to this blocking position, like just as a human nature thing, you want to know why you're doing some things. Right. Mm-hmm. So eventually, I'm going to explain to you why why is this important? Why am I telling you to do this? You don't always do that. And especially in a combat situation, it's just time to act. I say you do, and that's it. But then there's also time, if there is time, okay, this is why we're doing this. And they had the same reaction as I did on this corner where I finally get to the point where, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we have to do to make ourselves more effective. And there's a lot of work to be done. We're going to literally move walls. We're going to take a wall apart and relocate it and make a wall over here so it'll help us defend our position. And we're going to do some barricades behind us and there'll be drives behind. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of work to do in the defensive position that we had. And I explained that. And it's like, so they said the same thing. I tell them exactly what I was told. The Battalion 2000, the element that's the road we're on, and the road that disappears in the jungle, Battalion 2000 is down that road and they're coming back on a counteroffensive this way. And they're coming tonight. It's like, oh my God. And they're like, what? You know, they get this look on their face. Nobody said anything. They get this look on their face like, what? And I was like, all right, we understand what's going on. This is what we got to do. And they're like, okay. And then they start moving.
Let's get going. Yeah.
You say I do. Roger that, Sergeant. You know, it's like, so like we got to that point, and there was a lot of time that first night we did a lot of things.
I was gonna say, how'd that night go? I'm interested to hear how that kind of broke down.
It went really well. So we started, we have little by little, I'm asking for things, concertina wire and other things and vehicles to block roads and all that stuff. And then the road behind us was, it was just an open road, and it went through a residential area. And I didn't know beyond my little piece of the pie there where this road network went to. So I'm going to block it. And so we went back to block it, and we got pretty much everything ready to go to our front. And we're continuing to improve our position, but we're ready to go right now. And so I took myself and two others to the back to kind of block off this one road. And when you're crossing a road in any kind of military tactics, right, you have near side security on your side, you post security, watch left and right. And then as somebody crosses, and then you post security on that side, everybody follows, right? So security cross, assume security, and then the rest of the element crosses. So in our case, I only had to cross it to build the obstacles. We're not crossing to continue in that direction. So like I post security, and we're literally carrying things, trash cans and lawn furniture, all the stuff that we're getting from the homes that we just occupied, and we're just stacking it in the street and trying to at least slow down somebody if they wanted to come that direction. If they saw a bunch of stuff in the road, they might cause, it's like, hold on, I might not be able to go through that stuff. Mm-hmm. So we do that. And the first time we were running out there, I don't know what they were using. So one house had a stack of 2x4s ish. So I'm carrying that to this site, and that's going to be the first thing I'm running out there with to put it on the street. I intend to put things under it so I can, build some sort of look, official looking.
Yeah, it's type of wall type.
Yeah. So with what I had, so I go running out there with that, and then so post security, I'm running out there. Another guy, he had trash cans and stuff like that. So we're gonna build this little gate, wall, fence, whatever. Start stacking stuff, and we go out there, and I hear these shots over our head. So I dropped what I had in my hands, went to the other side of the road because that was the closest side of the road for cover. So I dropped it, went over there, looked up at where I thought rounds were coming from, looked across the street, and see my guys over there looking at the same thing. They're like, but they're not shooting. And I was like, okay, hey, did you see that guy? And I'm yelling across the street. It's like, hey, did you see that guy? They're like, no, we didn't see him. We heard it, we didn't see it. So I was like, okay, what do we do now? It's like and there was a street light too. There was a street light, jungle, neighborhood. It's a neighborhood, and so urban jungle environment. There's a street light. And it's like, so we can shoot out the street light, I guess. So we shoot out the street light. Well, it doesn't do much for us. So okay, let's go try to build this, block this road, build something, put something up. We got to do something. So run back across the road, grab some more stuff, go back out to the road, and then I hear it again, like snaps over my head. So snaps and pops and all this other stuff, different sounds bullets make when they pass your head. So I hear snap, snap. It's like, that son of a bitch, right? And I can hear it coming off from my left, and I dive back on the other side of the road, look at my guys, and looking up there, I was like,
he's fucking there.
Shoot that dude. And they're like, they couldn't see him. I was like, God dang. So this happens a half a dozen times. I was like, we got it. Okay. So I assessed. He was inaccurate when he was shooting, so he missed. And I didn't see any ricochets off of anything that I had or anything at the ground. So I was like, okay. So in my assessment, I'm going to accept this level of risk, and he's a shitty shooter. So I'm going to keep building this wall. And so little by little, it's like, okay, you ready? I got something in my hands. And the guy's on security. It's like, okay, you guys ready? We're going. 1, 2, 3. Okay, go. Watch what that dude's doing and shoot that dude. And because I got to go out there, and he might not miss one of these times, right? He might be kind of ranging me in and all, whatever. It's like, so we get this wall built, and the last thing that we have that we're going to put out there, we still can't find this dude, and we can't see where he's shooting from. I do this, last act of defiance thing. And it was like, whatever I had in my hand, I went out there, ran out there really quickly, and it was the last second thing. And I was telling my guys, I was like, okay, all right, look for the flash and just shoot at the flash when you see something. So I run out there. It's like 1, 2, 3, go. And I'm out there running again. Drop what I have, erect some things, snap, snap, snap. I was like, shoot the dude, right? And they're like, we can't see him. We can't see him. So I stood there in the middle of this road going, what, dude? Like, shoot at me so my guys can see you shooting and they can have something to shoot at. And then nothing. And I was like, all right. So I just casually walk off like defeated. And I'll walk back to my guys. And as I'm walking back, I hear, snap, snap. I was like, whatever, dude. I was like, well, it's like whoever you are, whatever you were trying to shoot
the worst
at,
fucking shot.
It's like, I'm still okay. So you do you, and we got to go get ready for this army to come down our road. Man, that was like so crazy. And the 2 guys that I had there were kind of feeling like they disappointed me, right? Because I was yelling at them the whole time. It's like, would you please shoot that dude? And they're like, I can't see him. I can't see him. And he was my guy Smitty. He was with me in a lot of places in Romero. So he was our Spanish speaker. He's fluent Spanish speaker. So he was with me mostly everywhere I went. He was a machine gunner, one of my machine gunners, but fluent Spanish speaker, which I am not. So he was with me everywhere I went. So I can understand a lot of Spanish, but I can't talk back, especially when you're all jacked up and trying to give somebody instructions when you're all super like,
little adrenaline dump going.
What are you saying? And English is hard to say even in those moments. But so he was with me a lot, and they're like, apologizing. It's like, we couldn't see him. I'm so sorry. I was like, all right, whatever. Don't worry about it. Couldn't see him. Didn't shoot him.
Yeah, that dude's more pissed off than you guys at this point. He just
no harm. He's hopeful. What I saw was like this dude going, like looking at his gun, like, why am I not hitting him? His thing's not zeroed. His gun's not zeroed. Yeah. His sights are all jacked up. It's like just trying to shoot something.
Pop shots.
I was like, okay, we don't have to worry about that dude. He's not hitting anything anyway. Yeah, that was so. Yeah, so that night too, though. All we heard that night down the road that this Battalion 2000 group was, and it wasn't the whole organization. It was really didn't care to me. It's like whoever's coming down that road is going to get what we got coming.
Yeah.
Whatever we have, we're sending it. Yeah. And we had all kinds of stuff, rockets and machine guns and all kinds of cool shit. All the stuff I wanted to play with, right? And guys with more stuff. So that was all we heard that rest of that night was down the road. We can't see it, but we sometimes see the plane, the Spectre gunship, but we can hear them engaging targets down the road. And so it was howitzer fire from the Spectre gunship, the AC-130, machine gun fire, and the 40, I think it's a 40 millimeter they have. That's all we heard all night. Just somebody, just boom, 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 boom. And then their Gatling gun. And we're like, yeah, tear them up, man. So whoever comes down, whoever's left is going to come down. So yeah, eat them up. Do as much damage as you can. That's all we heard all night. So I was like, I was a very reassuring noise to hear that night. It's like, yeah, do as much as you can or stop them all together because whoever makes it is coming our way, right? And so, yeah, and it worked out. So, and sunrises, no Battalion 2000. I was like, okay, good for us, right?
Yeah.
So sunrises, there was a family, woman and her kids. So we ended up, the neighborhood that we were in was actually, and we've come to find out because we raid all the houses that are around here and we're finding all this stuff. It was the officers' quarters where the Battalion 2000 leadership had lived. That was their housing area. And so, and because we're going through these houses as we're raiding the houses, we're like looking at diplomas on the walls and
some uniforms in the closet. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, training stuff that we've done for them in their history. You know, they've gone to they used to call it School of Americas at Fort Benning. Well, it's like we're going through these homes and we're finally looking at these walls and we're like, what? Dude is at Fort Benning. What's going on, right? And then we see all their I love me walls and we're like, are you kidding me right now? And then, you know, their closets and their uniforms and their ranks is like, oh shit, what the hell? But and that's one of the things we did notice when we first occupied that particular neighborhood. It's like where are all the men?
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Some shady shit going on right here. Yeah. What's going on? So as we start raiding these homes, we find out. And the one house that was right behind us, cool lady, her and her kids used to come out every morning to give us any number of things. So they had I can't remember the drink. It was a very Panamanian thing, very spicy, like a warm coffee, cocoa drink.
Is it like Kacha or something? Or
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It is very good.
Yeah. And it was that and sweet tamales. Yep. So, oh my God. Yeah, I was like, it's like, this is the best food we've ever had, right? Every morning, how many guys do you have? Is the first thing she asked. And I was like, well, there's 13 of us or something like that. And so she's like, okay, well, let me bring some more food out for you. And all the Panamanian kind of flavor to everything. So very sweet. Mm-hmm. Tamales, I can't remember the name of the soup either. It's kind of like a menudo, but not quite. It was their version of that kind of a soup. Mm-hmm. And that whatever that coffee was, it was awesome. Very cinnamony, sugar, coffee, cocoa, you know, all the things Panama, right? Oh, it's so good. But yeah, every morning she came out and it's one of the last homes we didn't raid because somebody was occupying it and we had a more deliberate plan for that house. And then she came out the first morning and at first I was like a little, you know, it's like you're coming out here to do this so we won't hit your house, right?
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, what are you hiding in there is what I went in my head. And so eventually we raided her house. And the first time she came out with the food, it was one of those things too. It's like, okay, what are you putting in here?
Yeah.
Right? So a little taste test stuff. And at the time though, I was like, I'm just hungry and this tastes good, smells good. I'm just going to eat it.
Yeah.
And
middle of the jungle.
And by the way, is anybody else in the house? You know, so whatever, how many, it was like 3 kids or something like that she had. She's like, one other kid's still in the house because they're all out there. They're bringing trays of food and drinks. And it's like, who else is in the house? And, you know, she's like, one of my other smaller children's still upstairs. Like, can you tell him to come down, please? And she does this. She said something, like made an excuse. And I was like, no, tell him to come down. And so you guys are out here and safe. And just so you know, we're going to go look in your house. And she's like, okay. So she ran in the house and got her other kid, came out. And I said, okay, is anybody still in your house? She's like, nope. So for my guys, it's like, okay, you see somebody in the house, you know, he's free game.
Yeah.
So, because we already looked at all the other homes and they're all commanders in this organization. So now we're going to go dig through your house in case somebody's hiding. So we went through there and raided her house. We're pretty good about not destroying everything, but we looked at everything, every nook, cranny, lifted sheets and mattresses and all that stuff. And then it said, give her the whole little interrogation thing. It's like, where's your husband? Because we see plaques and graduation certificates and uniforms in the closet. And she says, she's apologizing. So my husband's a commander in the Battalion 2000 and also she said the actual name of the organization. And I was like, okay. So, and he's not here right now, right? And so she's like, no, he left 2 nights ago when you guys invaded our country. It's like, okay, just checking. We have nothing against you guys. That's fine. Just tell us anything if you hear anything, because they were kind of right behind us in this defensive perimeter. But some other folks report that up the chain of command. Some other folks came out to talk to her about stuff, or some of our intel guys. But they ended up to be nice people. Just caught in the war and fed us well for a couple of days that we're sitting in her backyard. It worked out pretty good. And then the Battalion 2000 never comes down because apparently whoever's calling that Spectre gunship, guess who they are?
Yeah.
It's unit guys down there.
I was going to say, I know you cross paths with, which is, it's funny how that works out, but yeah. Can you speak to that story? Because that was crazy.
Yeah. Running into them in our blocking position. Yeah. So we're expecting that morning. So Spectre gunship all night long. We're hearing all that stuff. We're getting ready for this big fight of our lives. And nothing happens. Sun starts to come up and nothing happens. We have a few people that are awakening, trying to move around. So there's a curfew. There's a curfew in Panama at the time for everybody other than military. You have to be military during whatever hours they are, martial law kind of stuff. And sun's coming up and people are allowed to move around if you have a reason to move around. And so there's some people showing up at our blocking position. And of course, now we're ready. We're ready for this army to come down the road, right? But there's a couple cars and they start stacking up. And we're denying them access through that point, right? It's like, no. And just so you know, we're getting ready for other action at this checkpoint. So you could stay.
But shit's going to kick off.
But we're getting ready for some big stuff right now. And now you can't pass through here. So you can go back to where you came or you stay here. Your choice is yours, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of them stayed in their cars and they were complaining and bitching and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, just tell them they're free to leave. We're not holding them there, but they're not coming through this way. And really in that part of Panama, there wasn't a whole lot of other options for them to get around. So then as they're stacking it into this checkpoint that we had, they're really stuck. Unless the person in the back starts backing out, they're pretty much stuck. And I told them that they're stuck. Shooter's choice. You can leave or stay, right? And then so we have this panel van in the back of the stack. And I'm back with the guys in the wood line managing that stuff. And the guys are working the checkpoint. And they're questioning people and telling them those things. You can leave or you can stay here. It doesn't matter. Your choice. You might want to leave. And Smitty, he's down at the end. He's one of my senior guys. He's a Spec 4. He's got a 203 gun. And he's down there and he's working the crowd. He's down there asking questions and telling people all this stuff. And I hear him on the radio and he calls me. He's like, hey, Sergeant P, I need you down here for a potential army, something to that effect. So I was like, all right, what's the deal? And he's like, hey, they say they're a U.S. Army, but they don't look like a U.S. Army and all this other stuff. I was like, okay, well, all this stuff going on. I was like, well, hold on a sec. I'll be down in a second. And so I finished a few things up and then go running down there. I was like, okay, well, what's up? And he's like, that's it. And I saw the panel van. I saw it from where I was at. I was like, so the panel van, they're in the panel van. And they say they're Army, but he may have even seen an ID card or something like that, but still was like, because there was earlier that summer we were there were false IDs being made to pass through checkpoints. And they were, it wasn't a cat card at the time. They were just very easily to replicate IDs.
Yeah.
So that was in everybody's head. It's like, okay, I see your ID, but
who are you really?
Yeah. And so that's the situation we're in. And I go down there. I was like, okay, well, they're not being aggressive. So the two guys in the front of the panel van, they're Hispanic looking. And I was like, so, and at the time, all things, you're thinking about, it's like, yeah, this is not good.
Something sketchier. Yeah.
Yeah, I need you guys to go because you guys might be the lead element of the Battalion 2000 as far as we're concerned, because that's what we're waiting for.
Mm.
It's like, so what's up? So it's like, okay, well, who are you? So, that's me. You cover, I'll go question. So he's covering everybody, covering the van and the two guys up front. It's like, and he's like, Sergeant, he calls me Sergeant. He's like, Sergeant, I get it. But we're in the Army. We need to get to, it was either Comandancia or somewhere where Noriega was at, or I don't know if they said Comandancia or something else. Not the Comandancia, the Papal Nuncio, right? Something along those lines. I was like, and I don't know yet that Noriega has moved from where he was to the Papal Nuncio or anywhere. I don't know that yet because I'm just at tactical level. All I know is guys are infilling, jumping out of planes, and we're on the ground getting ready to fight it out with Battalion 2000. All stuff. So that's what I know. And it's like, I don't even know where that is that you just said, right? That's what I'm thinking. I don't even know what that is, but why does the Army want to go there, right? And now are you like U.S. Army?
Yeah, you sure?
So all these things going through my head. And it's like, well, what do you have in the back? And he's like, and he said, it's like, I have guys with guns and I need to get all of us to wherever it is they needed to go. I was like, okay, well, I need to see. Is that okay if I do this, right? I mean, otherwise you're not going to be allowed through here.
Yeah.
And he said, go ahead, right? And I don't know whatever conversation they had between whoever's in the front seat and whoever's in the back, but I was like, okay, I'm going to open the door and check in the back. So it's a panel van, so it's a slider door, right? So we're going to do our infantry thing and clear this vehicle, right? And Smitty's going to get the handle and pull it, and I'm going to clear it with the gun. And Smitty does his thing. It's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, boom. And we're getting ready to, see what we see. And guys are in the back, and they're, doing the same thing as me. It's like, we don't trust you either. So, and I know now, that's the worst thing you can come up against is an Army cat just all jacked up, ready to shoot anything, right? Because all this other last 20 years, I've dealt with that too. And that is just the worst feeling ever. So I'm face to face with guys with guns pointed at me, and they're just like, oh shit. But I see that the American flag, the two guys up front weren't in uniform. So that was the other thing. So, but the guys in the back were in uniform, American flag, see it big as day. It's like, okay. So I still don't know who you are, but
go ahead.
Close the door. Smitty closed the door. It's like, you guys are good. And then he's like, he's being very gracious. He's like, thank you, Sergeant. He goes, hey, but how do we get through here? Because I have the road junked up with all these other cars, right? He's like, there's no other way through here. He's like, how do I get here? So then, I do my Moses trick and part the Red Sea, right? I was like, I yelled down the line. I was like, hey, get these guys off the road. This van's coming through, and let the van through. And then little by little, the Red Sea is parting, right?
You get the guys up.
There you go. And they're like, thank you. Thanks, Sergeant. Appreciate it. And off they went. And then come to find out, I get to selection. And the first time somebody mentions that, so it's in selection. So it's the same year. So 89, we get back from Panama. 90, I go to selection like 6 months later, right? And I don't know how to read, the looks that I'm getting and select from the cadre that are there who are squadron guys, right? But I'm getting that look like,
you look familiar.
yeah, yeah. You're like, you're that guy. And so I don't make the first selection. The second time I go through, I make it. And when I make it, they come through there and it's like, and then they start relaxing a little bit. They can finally talk to you. It's like, since you made it past selection, it's like, hey, you were in Panama, right? Because so the whole time I'm going through selection, they're like, yeah, that's that dude. That's that dude that was in Panama, right? And I don't know that discussion's happening until later when I get to the unit, but in selection at the end, when I make it, they're like, were you in Panama in 89? Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, wait. What interaction did I have with guys, right? And I was like, oh, it might have been those guys in the van, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple of guys come in here and they ask some of the cadre stop by and they say, congratulations and all this other stuff. They say a few words or whatever. And it's like, one of the cadre came in and said, where's Sergeant Porras, right? I was like, that's the first time they call you your name and rank. So they said, everybody's like, yeah, he's over there. Get away from me. What's wrong? What's going on? And I was like, oh, hey, Sergeant Porras, congratulations and all this other stuff. Hey, you were in Panama, right? I was like, yes.
Why does everyone keep asking me that? Yeah.
Well, yeah. What's going on here? And then everybody else is like, okay, just checking. And then they take off. It's like, okay. And then all of my other guys that were there in selection with me, and then we're just waiting now for the board and transportation, all this other stuff. What's happening next? And all we know is we made it through selection. And all the other guys like, why are they coming? How do you know these dudes? It's like, oh, that's what you got here because you know these dudes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who that is. I don't even know why they asked me that question. And I don't know that until I even get to way into OTC where they finally start asking. Now they're just, I'm there with them and I'm in the building and all that stuff. Now in the dining facility, the OTC guys are sitting in one place and everybody has their own little areas. They're sitting with their guys. And a couple of those guys came up to the table. Hey, Sergeant Porras, how's it going? Hey, you were in Panama, right? I was like, everybody's like, what's up with this Panama deal? And I don't know yet. And I was like, the only thing I could think of is they were those guys. I don't even know if it was those guys yet. And finally, one of the guys that was actually in the front of the vehicle, he ends up being a team sergeant in the squadron that I go to. And so I go through OTC, I'm getting that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I finally get to squadron. And when I get to squadron, one of the team sergeants is one of the guys in the front seat.
No shit.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, Sergeant Porras, welcome to squadron, all this other stuff. He's like, you don't remember me, do you? I was like, no.
Yeah, where do we meet?
He's like, you were in Panama, right? I was like, yeah. Checkpoint, white panel van. And I was like, oh, shit. It's like, yeah, that was me. I was like, holy shit, no kidding. I was like, I had no clue who that was this whole time. Yeah. I just knew it was like,
somebody.
Yeah, somebody important had American flags on, right? And, badass fucking shit going on and needed to be somewhere in a hurry. And apparently you have control, you were talking to, you have control of the Spectre gunship that night,
Yeah.
And, that's when I even finally find out what all this is about. And then one of my buddies in 2nd Ranger Battalion who's on the jump out there, he also gives me a hard time because apparently he ran into some 7th Infantry guys and they shot at each other and shot at them. And he's like, yeah, you 7th Infantry dudes, you're the one who shot at me. I was like, no, I didn't shoot it. That wasn't me.
I was getting shot at and they couldn't shoot him. I don't think I was shooting at you.
Yes, so he still gives me a hard time. I still talk to him. He's a good dude.
Let me ask you a question with that. So when unit guys come across infantry, are you guys not allowed to disclose that you guys are, or was Delta Force just not widely known at that time? Because I know that was kind of in its very early days there in Panama. So if infantry and unit crosses path in that scenario, are they not allowed to say, hey, this is the unit we're a part of? This is
Yeah. So it's usually not a matter of being not allowed to say anything, but it's usually just a matter of like mission OPSEC, not to disclose like who you are, but what you're doing and all this other stuff. Yeah. So, and in that particular situation, the guys in the front of that panel van were working in a clandestine role to get the teams across Panama at the time, which a couple years later, that's me in the front of a delivery truck in Bosnia, getting teams across Bosnia in the same situation, right? And so I totally get it now. That it's like, well, look at me now. Now I'm the guy in the front of the van.
So if it came to it though, like let's say they were all in, like obviously oftentimes when you guys are doing operations behind enemy lines, you aren't, just wearing, you'll be in various outfits and such. Like if you didn't pop that open and they had that big American flag, let's say you were still kind of sketched out, are they able to then kind of be like, hey, look, we're a special forces group, like maybe not even going specific to the unit, but you can kind of say, hey, like we need to get through. Like,
yeah, that's usually the case. We never had I don't think I've ever had to say exactly who we were, but there's usually a way to say that without disclosing exactly what unit you're with or what organization you're with. Yeah. You can easily, a lot of times we're SF or something like that. We can say that if it's obvious you're on a SF type environment. Yeah, I'm with special forces. Yeah, we're doing this other mission, right? Kind of stuff. It's pretty easy to talk about, without disclosing too much. But usually it's those folks that are like, oh yeah, he didn't say anything, so yeah, he's Delta. Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on too, right?
I can imagine.
So usually in the back in the States, right? Yeah, they're like running around Fayetteville or something like that, sitting at a bar or something like that. Hey, you one of the guys behind the fence, right? It's like, yeah. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the guys behind the fence. It's like, what, SEAL teams? Like, is that what you are? Oh, yeah, I'm a SEAL.
Yeah.
I'm training with the SF, right? Yeah. I'm a SEAL team guy, right? And they're like, oh, we thought you were one of the Delta guys. Like, yeah, no.
Yeah, what even is that?
I'm on a SEAL team.
Well, you highlighted that, I guess, jumping through, obviously selection, people could check it out with Dale for a little deeper dive, but it's a very, and it should be secretive, selection process. But you kind of highlighted there, you got through and everything. I guess one thing to cover there before jumping through, we talked about this before getting into the show, selection is meant to break you all the way down until your absolute limit, and then see if you can push through there. Do you have any moment or any specific, thing that you can point to where you were at that moment, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Get to the point of like not think you're going to make it or wanting to quit or something? Is that what you're saying?
A little bit of both, or just when you're so fatigued that you're like, the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, oh my God, if this goes on any further, I'm not going to make it. So yeah, it's a total fatigue, like done, like muscles don't work anymore. And you're just literally mind over matter. And that's what carries you. All of us that have made it through, that's what usually did it. With some exceptions who are just inhumane, like monster dudes that just have it, right? But for the most part, it's like you get to a point where it's like, I want to move faster. I just can't. My legs aren't going any faster than they are right now. It gets to that point a lot. At one point, it gets to that point. It's like, oh my God, I can't. I want to go faster. I want to do more, but I just can't. And this is this is as fast as I'm going to go right now. So at the end, the last thing that we did the last day of selection, it starts in the early morning, dark, and the only thing that I don't know how far I got to go. I don't know when it's going to stop, because most of the days you don't know when your day is going to stop.
Yeah,
you just go until they tell you to stop. And so from point to point, so from moment to moment, you go somewhere, you meet a cadre member, and hopefully that's your last spot, but you don't know until they say your next rendezvous point is underneath that rock. And it's like, oh God. So go underneath that rock, get his piece of paper out, it has a grid coordinate on it, you plot it out, and it's like map sheets, like it's like, oh, son of a bitch. All right, grab some water really quick and suck it up, right? And you just keep going. So then it's that leg. Get to the end of that leg, and hopefully that's the last one, right? Then you keep going until they tell you stop. And then at the last one, the only thing I thought of at the last day, which I was fairly positive it was the last day, it was whatever time in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever time. It was dark, middle of West Virginia. And the only thing I thought of, was thinking of, is like, in my mind, my higher probability of success would have been if I was at the finish and I was done for the day before the sun dropped. So I was thinking, so I said in my mind, from sun up to sundown, I'm just gonna just run. Just go or move as fast as I can. I wasn't always running. And so this is at the end of selection. So you're already tired and beat down, just worn out, exhausted, really is a better term for that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going. But psychologically, I'm going to get myself ready for all day till the sun goes down. So if I turn my flashlight on, then I fucked up, right? Is what I was thinking in my head. So all day long, here's your next RV, here's some more water, have something to eat. And they never say, are you okay? But if they see something wrong with you, either it's dehydration or maybe an injury or something like that, or you're limping or something like that, they'll say to you something to the effect of like, do you wish to seek medical attention? And you have to say yes or no. And that's the only kind of things they'll tell you. Or your next RV is underneath the rock. Your next RV is on the hood of my truck. Your next, wherever they have that piece of paper with your next grid coordinates, right? That's it. And you're going from moment to moment. So I did that one thing all day long, all over, I don't know where I was, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, just all over the place.
Yeah, woods and chugging it along.
Up, I'm going down. I'm going up, I'm going down. End of the day, I get to the point where sun's low on the horizon. So, but it's West Virginia, so it's shadowed. I'm on the shadow side of this mountain. Sun's going down. I can still see blue skies above me. So I was like, well, I'm not quite there yet. And I'm not going to turn on this flashlight to see where I find a trail. But it got to the point where that part of the light was I lost the trail that I was on, or the game trail, whatever. This path I wanted to go, just all blended in. And I had my flashlight out of my hand. I was like, no way. I'm not going to turn this on. I'm not going to turn this flashlight. I'm going to push forward because I know somewhere behind this wall of, if you've ever seen how the mountain laurel grows in West Virginia.
I'm picturing exactly in my head how you put it.
It's like this,
yeah.
Right? And this is what you're fighting all day long, right? Just grabbing you and you're pushing through it. And so I saw this thing and I hear this, so total quiet. I'm thinking, all right, suck it up, right? I'm not going to turn on this light. I'm going to plow forward and go on this azimuth I was on and to my point. And it wasn't that far. I was like, I'm close, but I got this in front of me and it could be like 2 feet, but it's
That's it.
jungle in front of me, right?
Yeah.
And then I hear I'm quiet, get zen with myself. I was like, all right. Then I hear this other dude. He's crushing through the woods. He's cussing at himself. Son of a. And I was like, oh shit. There's signs of life around me, right? I must be close, right? So I hear that. I was like, and then also right then, the cadre member that was at the spot where I was going, my destination, turns on a lantern. So at night they turn on a lantern and put it on the hood of your truck. I did the same thing when I had to run that course. Lights the lantern, puts it on the hood of his truck, and I saw it, the glow through this, all these vines. And I was like, oh shit. It's like, yeah, I just fight my way through and get to that point. And I didn't turn on my light. I get to that point. And at one point I'm expecting, hopefully this is the last one, like all the other ones before that, right? I was like, oh God, I hope this is the same one. And he says something to the effect that your next RV is at the top of this hill, not on a grid coordinate. It's at the top of this hill. It's up this power line or whatever that was. It's up this power line by the fire. Something like that, right? I was like, what? So I'm thinking, I just got yanked from the course. I didn't make it, right? I was like, oh, man. And I was thinking, well, we'll see how I did, right? They're going to tell me one way or the other. So I go up this fire break or power line, whatever it is. I see this fire. I see some people standing around it. And I get closer to this fire. And then I see a couple of my fellow candidates. They're just laid out. And I was like, this doesn't look good. But I was like, push my stuff down. They said, here, have this glue vine, and sit by the fire, put on something warm and dry, change into a dry t-shirt, change your socks, all this other stuff, but feel great.
Yeah.
When you put on dry socks and a t-shirt, it's like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. So the glue vine, I think they had like sandwiches or snacks or something like that. And all we're doing is waiting for transportation from there back to the main base. And that's what the commander of the selection says, congratulations, you've made it past the formal selection and all this other stuff. And it's like, it's not over yet, but you've made it past the formal selection phase of your this process. And everybody's just so wiped out.
You're like, yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't have to walk anymore.
Yeah.
Does this mean I don't have to walk anymore? Yeah. And then it's like, everybody's just kind of just bleh. It's like, okay, cool.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. It's like, wait for your transportation. And then you start feeling all the pain, right?
Yeah.
Because you're nice to relax. You just settle down a little bit. It's like,
adrenaline's gone. Yeah.
Oh my God, this hurts. Yeah. So that was one of the moments. So I was thinking to myself, and of course I tried twice. And so the first time I went through, I didn't know how far I had made it because you don't know where you're at in the process. And the first time I went, it was just a series of just comical errors and just errors of mistake of navigating, getting hurt, tripping and falling, and things just started stacking up. And the second time is the only time I figured, or I was able to pass that point. And I was like, oh, this is where I got pulled last time. It's like, so anything from this day forward is going to be new to me, right? And it was like 2 days, 2 or 3 days or something. I can't remember what it was. It was like, dang, I almost made it the first time. But that was like one moment of, I made it further than the last time. Like I was on a high, right? And then it became easily within that day. It's like, oh my God, how many more days? I don't know if I'm going to make it again. Yeah, there are moments, but that's the point. You're battling yourself on your performance.
Yeah,
you're not competing against another person. There's nobody with you. You can't talk to anybody. You're not allowed to. If you see somebody, talk to them. And they're not telling you get here this like
Yes, do your best
during this time. Yeah, here's your point. Yeah, have a good one is all they say. Do your best, right? So it's like, what does that mean? I don't know. So then you kill yourself to get to the next spot. And then over and over and over again, you're just telling yourself, this is not fast enough. This is not fast enough. I need to go faster. I'm not doing, there's no way I can be doing this, moving this slow and this be good enough for these guys, right? Mm-hmm. So you push yourself and push yourself and push yourself. And eventually it's over. You're like,
yeah, did it.
That sucked.
Yeah.
So I always told guys too, and later on they're like, "Hey man, do you have any?" I made it into a selection course or something like that. After I get to the unit, like, hey, do you have any points, tips, anything like that? I was like, nope. Just do the best you can. And so you maintain that secrecy about everything. And I told this one kid, I was like, hey, I tell you what. I can tell you from day to day what I did and how I did and what you can expect. It's still going to be up to you to do it because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So all I'm going to say, do what you're told and do the best you can. And he's like, he's getting ready to write down notes. Like, oh shit, here comes some words of wisdom. I was like, yeah, do what you're told
and do your best.
Don't be late. Don't be light. And do the best you can, because that's all they say. It's like, bring everything we told you to bring, do what we tell you to do, and do the best you can. So,